Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and delighted that all of you are here as well. This is really an important and timely meeting. We're so grateful to the committee that came together very quickly to help us address the critical issue of the addition of caffeine to a range of food products, to help shape this workshop and to put in their time and effort, even calling in from vacations in Hawaii, I heard, as this meeting was being planned. But we're also grateful to all of you for participating with us over the next 2 days, because we really do need the knowledge, expertise, and insights on the issues surrounding the potential health hazards associated with the consumption of caffeine in food and dietary supplements. I think we all recognize that caffeine is a common part of the diets of the majority of adults, at least in this country, and many others. I suspect that, like me, you've had a caffeinated drink already this morning, mainly coffee, perhaps tea, and for some, including my colleague at the FDA, Mike Taylor, it's always a diet Coke. But in any case, you know, it's not surprising that we all are familiar with the substance caffeine. It's probably the most frequently ingested pharmacologically active substance in the world. It's a central nervous system stimulant, as I'm sure you recognize. It occurs naturally in more than 60 plants, ranging from coffee beans and tea leaves to cola nuts that are used to flavor soft drinks, and cocoa pods for use in making chocolates. It's been a part of innumerable cultures over thousands of years, centuries of history, and it is something that I think many feel they understand and are comfortable with, yet we live in an era of time when I think the landscape is changing very considerably with respect to how caffeine is appearing in products and the volume of caffeine potentially in diets. Years of research and study, I think, have shown that moderate consumption by healthy adults of products with naturally occurring sources of caffeine is not associated with adverse effects, whether it's the traditional coffee or tea, or even what we're seeing in terms of supersizing of coffee products, such as at the local Starbucks. And we're not really asking that this workshop address the set of issues associated with coffee, tea, even Coca-Cola. We're really asking that we take a closer look at the many new and novel products that in fact are inundating the marketplace today that have added sources of caffeine and that go well beyond the traditional caffeine-containing foods in the diet. Some of these products have already been the subject of considerable scrutiny in the media. Questions have been raised by consumer advocates, by scientists, by public health officials, and medical professionals. And we've also seen a growing interest on Capitol Hill about the nature and safety of these products. And certainly, you know, we have been delving much more deeply into these issues in recent times. And I think that there is really an urgent need to do it, which is why we so appreciate that this workshop was put together in such an efficient and timely way, because the array of new products that are coming into the marketplace is truly mind-boggling. We're seeing products coming into the marketplace with enormous creativity and also in fairly large quantity, and things that range from waffles and syrup to chewing gum to breakfast oatmeal and jelly beans, marshmallows, sunflower seeds. It's quite a surprising list. It even includes caffeinated water. And so the new marketplace raises many questions and concerns, both for us as a public health regulatory agency responsible for overseeing these products, and also for the food industry, whose responsibility is to ensure the safety of its products. And surely a key question, one already identified by numerous consumer advocates, medical professionals, and scientists, concerns the safety, availability, and marketing of many of these products to target populations that we might not ordinarily associate with caffeinated products, primarily children and adolescents. And studies have demonstrated that children with their lower body weight compared to adults are at increased risk for possible health effects from ingestion of even naturally occurring dosages of caffeine. And with caffeine now appearing in so many different product types, it's possible that a young child may be at risk of ingesting caffeine from many sources in a given day without even really having any sense of the exposures that they're having from what they're eating and drinking. And the consequences of this cumulative exposure is deserving, clearly, of greater analysis, attention, and understanding. And of course, children and youth are not the only populations that may be particularly vulnerable to some of this expanded, sometimes unexpected exposure to caffeine. And all of that underscores why we've asked the Institute of Medicine to undertake this workshop. Specifically, as Dr. Goldman was touching on, we've requested that this workshop really review the relevant literature, describe the vulnerable populations of concern, and the health risks from dietary supplements and foods to which caffeine is being added, and importantly, to help identify data gaps. It's a lot to ask, and you won't be able to do everything over the next 2 days, but you're off to a good start with the readings and the expertise that is coming together. And not only will this workshop really help us to address these questions, but it also, I think, lays the groundwork for additional studies and work that is being planned and will be taking place in the weeks and months to come. And before you really begin to drill down into some of these tough issues and take on the task with which we've charged the IOM and this committee and this workshop, let me just briefly remind you of a little of the history in this field to help put this workshop into a broader regulatory and public health context. As mentioned earlier, caffeine in coffee and other similar products used by adults is generally considered to be safe. In addition, the use of caffeine in cola-type beverages, up to 200 parts per million in accordance with good manufacturing practice, has been listed as generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, in FDA's regulations since 1959. But even early on, there have been concerns about the effects of caffeine consumption beyond moderate levels and in vulnerable populations such as children and pregnant women. In a 1978 report, for instance, the Select Committee on GRAS Substances raised questions about whether the chronic consumption of caffeine in cola-type beverages by children during a period of brain growth and development might affect behavior. The evidence was not conclusive. Most recently, in the last 10 years, the marketplace has been jolted, if you will, with an influx of energy drinks and caffeinated alcoholic beverages. This led to FDA sending 4 warning letters back in 2010 to manufacturers of caffeinated alcoholic beverages whose products, alcoholic malt beverages to which caffeine had been directly added as an ingredient, were subsequently removed from the market. FDA had not approved the use of caffeine in alcoholic beverages at any level. We were concerned about the safety of these beverages because published peer-reviewed studies suggest that the consumption of beverages with added caffeine and alcohol is associated with risky behaviors. Caffeine appears to mask some of the sensory cues that might normally signal an individual about their level of intoxication and help them to determine how to limit their use, but with the addition of caffeine, it masked that and created added health and public safety concerns. While those products are no longer on the shelves, the energy drink marketplace has continued to expand, and it's today a multi-billion-dollar business. The products come in a range of sizes and are marketed as either conventional beverages or dietary supplements. Several contain other compounds that interact with the added caffeine or add yet another effect to that caffeine, and many of these products, just as with the other products that add caffeine to their mix, appeal especially or even particularly to a young audience. All of which brings us back to your starting point today, the ever-expanding list of products with caffeine added to them, and what role FDA should play in terms of the broader regulatory and public health context for this marketplace. There are three primary points that you'll focus in on your discussions. First, it's your charge to examine the health risks associated with the use of caffeine beyond moderate levels and for specific populations. Some studies have suggested that for heavier consumption or habitual use of caffeine, there's an increased risk, particularly for vulnerable populations such as pregnant women or children. For example, the literature suggests there may be reproductive effects, such as reduced fecundity and a decrease in birth weight, even at lower levels of intake. And there is some limited evidence of anxiety in children at low doses or potentially other behavioral impacts. By examining and evaluating the epidemiological, toxicological, clinical, and other literature, you'll help us to have a better understanding, a more complete understanding of these health risks for these various populations of concern. Second, you should focus on the issues surrounding the marketplace for these products and the expanded availability of caffeine and conditions under which these products are used. The American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as a 2007 Institute of Medicine report, have expressed concern about making caffeine more readily accessible and attractive to children and adolescents. We need to know what the research suggests about caffeine exposure, particularly the additive effects and the conditions under which it is used, including in energy drinks and similar sources, and whether the FDA should be more closely monitoring and regulating these products. Especially, we are interested, as I've said, in distinguishing vulnerable populations, what is the evidence, and how we as a regulatory agency might address these concerns. And third, as this workshop indicates, it's our goal to be as transparent as possible in our investigation and study of this area and these kinds of products. To this end, we've worked cooperatively with the food and beverage industries, and they've shared their expertise and experience. We've reached out to public health and medical specialty groups, as well as consumers and consumer advocates. And we've conducted preliminary analyses of adverse event databases that are available to us and an examination of the literature. But this is a time when we really need to delve as deeply as possible into all of the areas that I've been talking about and to draw on all of the expertise available to us, and as I said, to do it in as open and encompassing a way as possible. We have been very surprised by much of what is happening in the marketplace. We have also been encouraged by how some in the industry have responded to concerns about the risk that children could be overexposed to caffeine, as demonstrated by Wrigley's recent announcement not to market a chewing gum they had developed with caffeine. Such voluntary restraint is helpful at this time when we're still searching for information and considering how better to define the regulatory boundaries around caffeine. And we look forward to continuing to work with the different parts of industry. But despite the laudable restraint that we've seen in some instances, we know some companies have been adding caffeine to their products based on their opinion that such use is GRAS, generally recognized as safe, without engaging the FDA or being transparent about what they're doing. As a result, they're raising numerous questions about the scope and rigor of their safety analyses, and this approach threatens to implicate the credibility of the industry as a whole and potentially undermine FDA's carefully balanced regulatory oversight, which is designed to allow innovation while ensuring safety. The meetings today and tomorrow will allow us to take a closer look and a thorough look at what is happening in the marketplace, how industry is proceeding with some of this so-called innovation, and what actions, if any, may be necessary. It occurs at a critical time and I think represents a true opportunity to evaluate the data and to reach some informed conclusions. I really do believe that the deliberations that you will be undertaking over the next 2 days, the discussions you'll be having, the data presented, the issues raised, will all help to guide us as we consider the right steps forward to protect public health. So we're deeply grateful, even in the early weeks of August, that you have come together here in Washington, that you're taking 2 days out of your busy schedules, and hopefully that you will be giving us your very best thinking and your honest assessments as we really examine these critical issues. So thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing some of your discussion. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the entire session. My colleague and Deputy Commissioner for Foods, Mike Taylor, actually has carved out the full 2 days to be part of these deliberations because it is of such high importance to us. So again, thank you.
Thanks to Commissioner Hamburg for joining us, even if just for part of the day. I think that that was very helpful in terms of helping frame why we're together. I just want to review a little bit of housekeeping. There's a timer here that's been set up for each session, each speaker to be aware that it's here. The yellow light means what? 2 minutes, and the red light means? So please do pay attention to this. We are going to be strict about timekeeping because of the fact that these sessions are packed with presentations, but also we want to have time for interactions at the mic. For those that are on the webcast, you can put in questions. The IOM staff will pick up your questions. We'll make sure that they're brought forward to the moderators. For those of you who are here in the room or in the spillover room, we have microphones that are in the aisle that you can line up at. And all I would ask is that if people do have questions or comments, to make them brief because of the fact that these sessions are fairly short and there are many people here who are likely to have questions, so that we were able to keep things moving forward and hear from as many participants as possible through the process. And so with that being said, I want to introduce Barbara Peterson. Barbara is a scientist in Exponent's Health Sciences Center for Chemical Regulation and Food Safety. Barbara is one of the international experts in this area of addressing exposure science in the context of risk assessment. And we're very pleased that she has been able to be a member of this committee and is chairing this session.